They say triathletes are superhuman. They swim for miles, ride for hours, and run until their legs scream for mercy. They compete in one of the most brutal endurance sports in the world, a race that demands complete domination of land, water, and sheer willpower. But here's the truth nobody talks about. Being a triathlete sucks. It's a sport that eats away at your time, your relationships, your mental health, and sometimes even your body. Triathletes are some of the fittest humans alive, but that fitness comes at a cost. Most people will never understand. Picture this, it's 4:30 a.m. The world is asleep, but you're standing in a dimly lit garage, strapping on cycling shoes. You've barely had time to blink before your mind is calculating intervals, wattage, and heart rate zones. You'll spend the next 3 hours on a bike trainer, staring at a screen, legs burning before the sun even rises. And after work, you'll hit the pool for laps until your shoulders ache, followed by a 5-mile run that feels like punishment. Triathlon training isn't a hobby, it's a second job, and it doesn't care if you're exhausted. For triathletes, every day is built around training. You're juggling swimming, cycling, and running, along with strength work, recovery sessions, and nutrition plans. It's a lifestyle that demands discipline on a level few sports do. Triathletes aren't just athletes, they're planners, data analysts, and nutritionists all in one. And in 2025, with AI-driven training platforms dominating the endurance community, athletes are constantly being pushed to their limits. Smart devices track every beat of their heart, every calorie burned, every ounce of hydration. It's precision training taken to extremes, and it's leaving athletes more burned out than ever before. The obsession with optimization is real. Triathletes live by their training peaks dashboards, obsessing over recovery scores, power output, and VO to max. If their Garmin says they slept poorly, they feel guilty before they even step outside. And social media only adds fuel to the fire. Every Instagram scroll shows perfectly sculpted athletes sharing their easy 60-mile rides or a casual brick workout that would leave a normal person hospitalized. This pressure to keep up is suffocating. Triathletes don't just train to race, they train to prove they belong in this elite, relentless world, and that's where the mental toll begins to show. Endurance sports already push athletes to the brink, but triathlon pushes them past it. Burnout in sports is a trending conversation right now, but triathletes have been silently struggling with it. For years, there's no true off-season in this sport. Training schedules are meticulously planned, months in advance, and rest days are seen as a weakness. A missed workout can send an athlete spiraling into guilt, and that guilt, it often outweighs the physical exhaustion. This sport demands sacrifices most people aren't willing to make. Family vacations are planned around race schedules. Friendships drift apart because training takes priority. Weddings, birthdays, barbecues, you skip them because you've got a 100-mile ride to finish. And when you finally do see friends or family, the conversation always turns back to your training. Because it consumes your life, triathletes often live in a bubble, surrounded by others in the sport because nobody outside it truly gets it. But here's the kicker. Even with all this suffering, most triathletes don't get paid. Outside of a handful of elite pros, triathletes are spending thousands of dollars just to compete. Bikes cost as much as a used car. Entry fees for big races can hit $1,000, not including travel, lodging, or gear, nutrition, supplements, physical therapy. It adds up. For amateurs, triathlon is a full-time job you pay to do. And for pros, even the top athletes are grinding for small sponsorships, prize money that barely covers expenses, and recognition that pales in comparison to mainstream sports stars. Think about that for a moment. A triathlete will put in 20 to 30 hours of training a week, balancing work, family, and life around it all for a medal of finisher's shirt, and maybe a photo crossing the finish line. This is a sport fueled by obsession, by personal goals, by that unexplainable drive to see how far a human body can go. And that's what makes triathletes special. They don't do it for fame. They do it because they're wired differently. But that wiring comes at a cost. Injuries are constant, stress fractures, overuse injuries, shoulder pain from endless swimming, tendinitis, and cycling crashes that can leave athletes sidelined for months. Every triathlete knows the fear of getting hit by a car during a ride. They know the pain of waking up with legs so sore they can barely walk, and yet they keep going. Because in this community, suffering is normalized. It's almost celebrated. The harder the grind, the greater the respect. But that mindset can be toxic. It leads athletes to push through injuries, ignore warning signs, and sacrifice their long-term health. And let's talk about race day itself. From the outside, it looks glorious. Hundreds of athletes line up in sleek wetsuits, music pumping, crowds cheering, but inside, it's chaos. The open water swim is terrifying. You're getting kicked in the ribs, elbows to the face, fighting to breathe while your heart rate skyrockets. Then you're on the bike, holding aero position for hours, praying for no mechanical issues, hoping your nutrition strategy holds. And then comes the run, when your body is already breaking down, and you're asking yourself why you even sign up for this in the first place. That's the dark side of triathlon, a race that feels like a battle of survival. As much as competition, even for the elites, this suffering doesn't go away. The sport is demanding on a professional level in ways people rarely talk about. These athletes don't have massive endorsement deals or private jets. They're often working part-time jobs while trying to train like full-time professionals. The media coverage is minimal and the pressure is massive. One mistake on race day can cost them sponsorships, rankings, their livelihoods. And with everything being streamed, clipped, and shared online, there's no room for error. Triathletes are perfectionists by nature, and that's part of the struggle. This isn't a sport where you can just wing it. The margin for error is razor thin. If your nutrition is off by 200 calories, your race could implode. If your pacing is slightly wrong, your legs will give out before the finish line. Training for triathlon is a science experiment on your own body, and the constant self-monitoring can lead to obsession and anxiety. And yet, through all the pain, there's a strange beauty in it. Triathletes are some of the most mentally tough athletes in the world because they've learned to suffer with purpose. They've embraced discomfort as a lifestyle. The finish line isn't just a moment of glory. It's a reminder of everything they've overcome: the sleepless mornings, the aching bodies, the sacrifices nobody sees. It's a moment where months, even years, of suffering are validated in one breathless crossing of a line. That's what keeps triathletes coming back, despite how much this sport takes from them. It's not about medals or Instagram likes. It's about mastery over themselves. It's about proving that they can endure more than they thought possible. And in a way, that makes this sport one of the most brutally honest athletic pursuits out there. Triathlon doesn't lie. It doesn't give you shortcuts. It reveals exactly who you are, whether you're ready for it or not. But this isn't a story about glory. This is a story about the cost of chasing that glory. It's a story about an athlete waking up at 4 a.m., not because they have to, but because they want to see what they're capable of. It is a story about pushing limits until your body screams enough and your mind whispers just one more mile. Triathlon is not for the faint of heart, and maybe that's why it's one of the hardest sports in the world. The dark side of triathlon isn't just in the miles, it's in the silence. When the alarm clock rings before dawn and nobody is awake to see you leave. When you're halfway through a 6-hour training block, alone on some quiet country road, wondering if this obsession is worth it. It is in the way your friends stop inviting you out because they already know your answer. Sorry, I've got a long ride tomorrow. Triathletes live in a strange paradox. On race day, they're celebrated. They cross finish lines to the roar of a crowd, medals around their necks, and inspiring music playing in the background. But what people don't see is the cost of those moments. The hundreds of solitary miles pedaled, the countless laps swum in echoing pools, the endless road runs, pounding pavement with no one cheering. This is a sport of isolation, where the loudest noise you hear is often your own breath and the quiet voice in your head saying, "Keep going." Even training partners can't fully erase that solitude. Swimming is an individual grind, staring at a black line at the bottom of a pool for hours. Cycling is a mental test, sometimes on a trainer staring at a screen for miles that feel like they'll never end. And the run is often where the demons show up, where you're forced to face yourself in ways that strip you bare. Triathlon is as much a psychological challenge as a physical one. This relentless grind often creates a dangerous cycle of overtraining. In 2025, AI-driven fitness apps promise to optimize recovery and prevent burnout, but triathletes are notorious for ignoring advice, even from technology. When your competition is training 20 hours a week, taking a rest day feels like falling behind. That's the culture of triathlon. More is better, faster is better, tougher is better, until it isn't. Mental health in athletes is finally getting mainstream attention, but endurance sports are often left out of the conversation. The narrative around triathlon celebrates suffering as a badge of honor. Pain is weakness leaving the body. They say, no pain, no gain. These slogans might sell t-shirts, but they also mask a deeper problem. Triathletes are masters at pushing through discomfort, but sometimes they're pushing through warning signs of serious physical or mental collapse. The truth is, triathlon can consume your identity. You stop being a friend, a spouse, or a parent first. You're a triathlete first. Your calendar revolves around training cycles. Your meals revolve around macronutrient counts. Your conversations revolve around power output, race strategies, and recovery hacks. This obsession is what makes triathletes extraordinary, but it's also what makes them vulnerable. When injury strikes or burnout sets in, triathletes often struggle to know who they are without the sport. And then there's the financial burden. Triathlon is expensive. Add social media to the mix, and the stakes feel higher. Platforms like Strava and Instagram have turned training into a performance in itself. Athletes upload every ride, run, and swim, and the comparison game begins. Who's training harder? Who's hitting faster splits? Who has the most aerodynamic gear? This pressure isn't just physical, it's psychological. Triathletes often feel like they're not just racing themselves, but racing for validation online. Race day is supposed to be the payoff. But even race day isn't a glamorous experience for most athletes. The morning starts at 3 a.m. with nerves twisting your stomach. The air smells of sunscreen, wetsuits, and nervous energy. The swim start is chaos, thrashing bodies, cold water, adrenaline, and panic attacks that nobody talks about because panic isn't part of the highlight reel. The bike leg is long, punishing, and lonely, and by the time you start the run, your body is in survival mode. For an Ironman, you're racing for 10 to 17 hours. You're forcing yourself to eat when your stomach turns, drinking electrolytes to avoid collapse, and managing pain in ways that would send most people straight to the hospital. And when you cross that finish line, you're emotional, exhausted, and proud, but deep down, you're also aware that in a few days, you'll start training for the next one. That's the paradox of triathlon. No matter how brutal it is, the suffering becomes part of who you are. Triathletes aren't chasing medals, they're chasing mastery. They're chasing a version of themselves they'll never fully reach, and that's what keeps them hooked. But let's not romanticize it too much. Behind every inspirational finish line video is a triathlete who has spent months feeling broken, doubting themselves, and fighting battles nobody sees. Even pros aren't immune. The top athletes in this sport are some of the fittest humans alive. But they don't live like celebrities. They're scraping by on sponsorships, traveling the world on tight budgets, and constantly juggling training with media obligations, recovery, and the pressure to stay relevant. Unlike mainstream sports, triathlon doesn't offer security. A single injury can end a career. A single bad race can cost sponsorships. It's a high-stakes world with very little safety net. But maybe that's why triathletes are so respected, because they choose this path, knowing it won't make them rich or famous. They choose to wake up before dawn, to train in the rain, to push themselves to the edge of exhaustion because they love it. That's the twisted beauty of triathlon. It sucks, but it also transforms you. It transforms you physically. You become stronger, leaner, and more aware of every signal your body sends. It transforms you mentally. You learn to suffer with purpose, to embrace discomfort, and to find strength in moments when most people would quit, and it transforms your perspective. After swimming a point for miles, biking 112 miles, and running a marathon, everyday challenges feel smaller. You realize what you're capable of, and that's a power few sports can give. So, why does it suck to be a triathlete? Because this sport will test every part of you, your mind, your body, your spirit, and your wallet. It will isolate you. It will break you down. It will push you to question why you ever sign up for this, and yet, in the same breath, it's one of the most rewarding things you'll ever do. Triathlon isn't just about fitness, it's about transformation. For every triathlete grinding through a 5 a.m. swim, for every amateur saving up for their first race bike, for every pro fighting for recognition in a world obsessed with mainstream sports, you are the reason the sport continues to inspire. Your journey, your sacrifices, your grit, they matter. Even if nobody sees the miles you ride or the tears you cry, they matter. Triathlon is not glamorous. It's raw, exhausting, and relentless. But maybe that's the point. Maybe that's why it attracts the kind of people who don't shy away from hard things. Maybe that's why it creates some of the toughest athletes in the world. So, the next time you see a triathlete, know that they're not just racing for a medal. They're racing for themselves. They're racing to find out who they really are. And that's why, even though it sucks to be a triathlete, there's nothing else quite like it. Smash that like button if you've ever trained for something that scared you. Which athlete inspires you the most? Drop their name in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow's story dives even deeper into the grind of elite sports. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.